Good morning, afternoon and evening all. This is Yorkie with episode 8 of my in-depth track guide series, and this week we are taking a look at Silverstone from England in the UK. We're going to be following the usual video format, starting off with the breakdown, followed by the hot laps, and then taking a look at the setups at the end of the episode. So without further ado, let's get on with it. So starting off with the breakdown then, we gain control of the car just as we come out the exit of Stowe and head down towards Club and Vale. And as we come down towards these two corners, you want to hang to the right hand side of the track and brake roughly about 110 metres before the corner. Sacrifice the speed through the left hander, ready for the right hander to try and open it up, get that power down and obviously start draining the curves before the start finish line. Keep to the left hand side of the track as we approach turn 1, and as we get to the 100 metre board you're going to throw the car in towards the inside curb. Your apex point is just here on the red and white curbing, and you basically want to try and take that quite nicely. Your apex speed should be about 180 miles per hour, which equates to 290 kilometers per hour. Your foot should be completely flat out throughout the entire duration of the corner, no need to lift whatsoever. And to try and maximise that speed, we're going to try and keep a relatively shallow steering angle. It's coming out through the exit, still completely flat out. Coming into turn 2 now, exactly the same principle, completely flat out, keep a shallow steering angle. We bring the car to the left hand side of the track, ready for turn 3. Our braking point is a UBS board on the left hand side of the track there, and we're going to be shifting from 7th gear all the way down into 2nd. You can use first to try and help yourself get tighter into the corner and try and help sacrifice some of the exit speed, ready to open up the left hander that immediately follows. So shifting down through the gears now, you have the option of either keeping in 2nd gear or dropping into first. It's completely up to you, your own personal driving style, but your apex point should be just here with an apex speed of 80 miles per hour, which equates to 130 kilometers per hour. You want to run the red and white UBS curbing on the inside here. Try and stay off the large red curbing on the inside, as that will bounce the car a little bit more than you would actually like it to. So coming out through the exit now, we're going to shift up into 2nd gear, bring the car immediately back over to the right hand side of the track to try and open up this left hander. And our braking point is at the end of the skid marking on the floor, just in front of the nose of the car there. And it's basically just a short dab of the brake to drop ourselves from 2nd gear back down into 1st. But as we come off the brakes, that's when we're going to start turning the car in, and we're just going to let the car drift towards the inside of the corner. So we're going to be clipping our apex point, that is just here. Your apex speed should be about 65 miles per hour, which equates to 105 kilometers per hour. And you want to again run the red and white curbing on the inside. Don't run the large red curb on the inside there, as once again that will bounce the car. As we come out through the exit, you should be balancing the throttle. We're going to unwind the wheel, and once we get the steering wheel relatively straight, that's when we're going to shift up into 2nd gear and push more power down into those rear wheels. Completely flat out for the following left hander, drain your curves down to about 50% and open up the DRS and the activation point as we come now down towards the end of the first sector and come now into this long left hander. So keeping to the right hand side of the track, we're going to be shifting from 7th gear down into 3rd. You kind of want to take as much speed into this corner as possible, but obviously you want to try and hook up the apex, which is relatively late, to be honest, for this kind of corner. So following a line in, basically just create a nice smooth arc. Once you've gone past all the bollards and it kind of sharpens up, you basically want to be hitting the curb on the inside here. Your apex speed should be about 105 miles per hour, which equates to 170 kilometers per hour. And I'm just shy of the apex at the moment, and that's probably because I turned in just a meter or two too late. The speed is roughly about right. But as you come out through the corner, you basically just want to let the car drift over to the right hand side of the track and basically point yourself straight at the entry to this long flowing right hander. So just keeping it nice and smooth. We drop down a gear into 2nd, and we're basically just going to flow through the corner, and your apex should be roughly middle to late. Your apex speed should be about 85 miles per hour, which equates to 135 kilometers per hour. You just want to try and get as close to the curb on the inside here. From this point onwards, you should be balancing the throttle and slowly starting to bring it back in. And provided you've got this right, you should be able to get relatively aggressively on the throttle, like I'm starting to do so here. Run the curb on the outside. We're going to drain about 10% of our curves to bring it down to about 45% reining. And as we approach Cops Corner, we're looking for 2 skid markings on the floor. That's them there. That is your turning point. Keep your throttle completely flat out as you come through and throw the car in. Your apex should be relatively early. It's about 185 miles per hour, which equates to 295 kilometers per hour. And it's just basically a case of running the curb on the inside here. To try and maximise the speed on the exit and throughout the duration of the corner. From this point here, you should be starting to unwind the wheel ever so slightly, let the car drift over to the left hand side of the track, use the curb on the exit, but try and keep at least 2 wheels within the white lines, unlike I did there. So coming into Maggots and Beckett's now, you just want to keep it completely flat out as you come into the first apex point, hooking up here. And this first apex speed should be about 190 miles per hour, which equates to 305 kilometers per hour. And you basically just want to kind of snake your way through this section. If you get this right, you can save yourself an awful lot of time or gain a lot of time as well. So coming into the second part of the Maggots, we're going to throw the car in. It's important to try and not cut the corner on the inside here, as it's very, very easy to do so, to try and keep the white, at least 2 wheels within those white lines. Your apex speed should be about 190 miles per hour, which equates to 305 kilometers per hour. And as you come through this apex point, you kind of want to keep the car to the right hand side of the track, or the middle here, like I'm doing so. And it's a very short kind of braking zone as we now come into the Beckett section of this sequence of corners. So at this point here, it's just basically a tap on the brake, just kind of balance it and apply it ever so slightly. It doesn't have to be full brake. Shift from 7th down to 6th. We're going to throw the car in. You're aiming to hook up a late apex point here. And your apex speed should be about 165 miles per hour, which equates to 265 kilometers per hour. At this point, we are still on the throttle. We should be about 80-90% on the throttle. You can go full throttle depending on how much grip you have and the line that you're taking. But as we come out of this section, we want to try and keep to the left-hand side of the track. We are then going to use another short stab of the brake and drop down 2 gears down into 4th gear. And we are basically, once again, trying to hook up a relatively late apex for this right-hander. Providing you get all this nice and smooth, you can carry an awful lot of speed through this section, and like I said, save yourself an awful lot of time and possibly gain time on the cars around you. So, throwing the car into the corner now, you want to try and get the curb on the inside here. Your apex speed should be about 135 miles per hour, which equates to 215 kilometers per hour. And from this point here, you should be pretty much full throttle, about 80-90%, if not completely flat out. And as you come out through here, you basically just run the curb on the exit, run through Chapel on the left-hander, let the car drift over to the right-hand side, drain about 30% of your curves, and open up the DRS at the activation point. We're going to bring the car slowly over to the left-hand side, ready for Stowe, the very fast right-hander. And at the red and white curbing here, just before the 50-meter board is our braking point. We're going to be dropping from 7th gear down into 4th, and you basically just want to try and carry as much speed, throw the car in, and hope that it sticks. So, doing exactly that, we're going to try and throw the car in relatively late at the 50-meter board, and dropping down the gears. We're just balancing the throttle. We're bringing the gear back up into 5th relatively quickly here, as we're very high up in the rev range. In race conditions, it could be a little bit lower. And you want to try and hook up the curb on the inside here with an apex speed of about 135 miles per hour, which equates to 215 kilometers per hour. And as you come out through the exit of this corner, you should be bringing the throttle back in. It should be about 60, 70, 80, 90%. Now should be completely flat out. Run the curb on the exit. We're going to let the car drift over to the right hand side, but not too far over, as the curb kind of curves into the track here, and it's very easy to run the curb and lock the front wheels. So allowing a little bit of room for that, we're going to be using the 100-meter board as our braking point. We're going to be shifting from 6th gear down into 1st, and we want to try and get the car slowed down before the corner. So hooking that up nicely, getting very close to the curb but just about avoiding touching it. We're going to throw the car in, and you're aiming to run the red and white curbing on the inside here. Your apex speed should be about 80 miles per hour, which of course equates to 130 kilometers per hour. Avoid the large red curbing on the inside, as it will bounce the car and send it out wide ever so slightly. So you want to try and keep all 4 wheels within the contact of the road surface at all times to provide as much grip as possible. So coming through into the right-hander, you're going to take a cheeky little bit off on the inside here, but of course keep 2 wheels within those white lines. So taking just a tiny bit off on the inside here, your apex speed should be about 75 miles per hour, which equates to 110 kilometers an hour, sorry. And as you come out through here, you should be bringing the throttle back in, and basically you're going to let the car drift over to the left-hand side of the track. Once you get the wheel straight, get max throttle, get up into 3rd gear, drain the rest of the curves, and basically just take the final corner completely flat out, run the curb ever so slightly and across the line to complete the lap. So we're now going to move on to the hot lap part of the episode, where I am now going to basically shut up, use exactly the same lap that I just showed you there with the breakdown, but of course with just pure engine sounds, completely unedited. Okay, so now that you've seen a dry hot lap, we're now going to move on to a wet hot lap. So the principles are relatively the same, kind of a similar sort of aggressive style, but of course braking ever so slightly in a couple of places and slightly different apex speeds and throttle management. So coming out through the exit, be very, very cautious. If you do get a little bit of wheel spin, just try and power on through it, join as much curves before the start finish line. Once again, turn 1 is completely flat out, throw it in at the 100 metre board and hope it sticks. Try and keep a shallow steering angle for both turns 1 and 2, and then coming down here into the third corner, your braking point should be about 5-10 metres before the corner. So missed the apex on the first one and missed the apex on that left-hander there, but nothing too major. And again, going to drain about 45% of our curve, as we come now down the Wellington Straight. Of course, no DRS this time because of the wet weather conditions. Our braking point is about 10 metres earlier than it was before. You actually want to try and get that apex hooked up on the inside there. Same through this one, dropping a gear, be very patient on the throttle, balance it, and as you come out through the exit and start to straighten up the wheel, that's when you get aggressive with the loud pedal. And we're now coming down towards Cops. Once again, it's pretty much flat out. There's only a very slight lift, probably lift to about 18-19% throttle, and continue on through in 7th gear. Coming into Maggots and Beckett's, once again completely flat out through both sections. Coming now, dropping 2 gears into the first part of Beckett's and then dropping down into 4th, riding those curves aggressively through that complex of corners. So again, draining the curves down to about 20% remaining as we now come down towards Stowe Corner. Again, same braking point as before, dropping down into 4th gear, bringing it back up into 5th as we get back on the throttle, and then coming into the final couple of corners, braking about 5-10 metres earlier before than we did, hooking up the apexes relatively nicely there. Be very patient on the throttle as we come out through the exit of the corner, and obviously drain the rest of the curves to bring the car home. So that's the hot lap and also the breakdowns complete. We're now going to move on to the setups that I use for both the dry and wet laps. For the dry, I was using a 2-2 on both aero, front and rear wings. Braking was a 49-51 with a high standard setup. Brake balance was a 7 on the front and then 3 on the rear. Our ride height was a 1-1 and then an 8 on spring stiffness on the front and then 2 rear spring stiffness. Those were the gear ratios that I was using in miles per hour, and then again the gear ratios in kilometers per hour. And then finally the toe and camber settings with the camber all the way to the left for the front, ever so slightly left on the rear, and then toe is completely default. So moving on to the wet laps now, or wet setup, 3-3 for wing angles, 49-51 again, however a medium pressure this time instead of high. Balance ever so slightly softer on the front balance, a 7 and then a 3. And ride heights, same again, 1-1 and then a 6-1 this time. Those are the gear ratios that I was using in miles per hour, and then of course the gear ratios in kilometers per hour. And of course finally the toe and camber settings, which were pretty much the same except for ever so slightly more toe to the right. So that's going to conclude it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please give it a rating. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. I shall hopefully see you soon, guys. Take care.